studio. Makali, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and Peter Opondo, great to see you again. And Mutahi Nguni, always very candid. Also great to have Tom Wolfe back commenting on these issues as we head towards the election. Gentlemen, the polls are highly controversial. Everybody has an opinion on when the polls come out, and we as Kenyans are all experts when it comes to politics. Why does Raila still have the lead, and he's had so many of his allies walk out of ODM? Let me start with you, David.
Well, I think that just confirms the fact that of all these politicians, as I've said, I think Raila is the only one who has a solid, loyal support, followers as we call them, across the country. Even in areas where there are candidates coming from those regions, Raila still picks a few votes here and there. And those are loyalists. They will not move. They're in that party and they're with him because they believe in his cause, they believe in his character, his whole personality, his charisma and so forth. They are loyal to him as a person. They're not there because of the other people he has been with. So after Ruto left, after Musalia left, Balala left, Charity has gone, still that is what you can say was what Raila owned before these people came on board. Because initially it was at 50, so it's come down to about 30-something. So we can say that is actually Raila's own support across the country. Well,
let's come to this. And as I said, polls are very controversial. There's the issue of polls financing. And Infotrack Harris actually had to come out and say, we financed this poll, and to clarify that. We also saw in the US election some pollsters as far off as 7%. Your thoughts on these issues, Peter?
Yeah, of course, there will always, I mean, everybody... people will disagree or agree based on where they are placed on the polls. But I think what we should look at is the pointers. We should get the pointers. What messages are these numbers telling us? And I think to answer your original question is, I think, to me, the reason why still Raila maintains that lead over his rivals is because he's a relentless campaigner. I think that he's the one politician that you will see on the campaign trail every single day. He's always in the limelight. Now, even when he's not in the campaign trail, you will find that his rivals are speaking about him and also projecting him in the limelight. So that, to some extent, maintains his visibility, and publicity, whether good or bad, is good for a politician.
Now let's come to the scenarios that have been posed. And in a sense, this, it starts to grate on you a little bit, because we're back to the whole issue of like-minded, whatever like-minded means. In the papers you see now, KANU is busy searching for like-minded parties. It brings us right back to questioning almost the democratic process and saying, how are we deciding on who we're going to vote for, with so many people already having made up their minds, we are told by the pollsters? That means the Kenyan people are not adequately negotiating with their leaders on issues. David, should we be saying, let's wait to see what you're promising us in terms of issue-based, agenda items before we make an absolute decision?
I think, first of all, we need not buy into the language of the politicians. This thing about like-mindedness, like we've said before, is really just hype, because there is nothing fundamentally different between these parties. Whether, if you look at what KANU, for example, is saying, looking for like-minded people, why don't they just say they go back to the people who were in KANU who left, which is Uhuru and Ruto, who were together in 2002? What has changed about the ideas? The ideas that they have, I suppose, are the same ideas that KANU would like to implement right now. So the whole notion about like-mindedness is just, a camouflage. The thing is that people are looking for numbers. The mathematics must add up for them to get power. The ideas will come later, really, so to speak, because even now, which party has got a manifesto out? Which party has got a blueprint that they can say we are sharing or exchanging? There is no discussion of that caliber happening at all.
I think Peter Kenneth tried last week, but we're going to.
Yeah, I mean, 5 points.
Later. Martha Karua, I think, also kind
Charity,
of
5 points. Peter Kenneth, 5 points. But really, those are shared.
You're saying
in all these political parties, the same things.
Let me ask you this, Peter, even as you respond with your thoughts. Even the electorate then are complicit in this big farce of voting.
Of course they are. They are. That's a fact. But I think it's a reality that we have to accept and find a way of solving it. Now, the thing is social scientists call it the horizontal inequality. Now, this is where people believe that if my person is not in State House, then I've been locked out of I cannot get a share of the national pie. Now, that's the reality in this country. Now, I think at this particular moment, even those polls numbers confirm that people are still looking at who is my person and where is my person. So if we want, I think we are squandering an opportunity here as Kenyans, because I think if we can diagnose that our problem is actually that we want we have to have equal access to the national pie, irrespective of who is in State House. I would have expected that what the politicians should be telling us now is what they will do to ensure that that reality actually happens. Now, the thing I would expect now politicians to tell us is about devolution, for example. Yes, we have a new constitution which spells out very clearly the devolved system of government, but the politicians are not really telling us how they will ensure this happens and this reality comes to happen, so that you, from wherever you come from and I come from wherever I come from, it doesn't matter who is in State House, we are all equal, we have the same access to the national pie.
Maybe it's a bit early. I think it's a bit early. The campaign starts
You've been
next
campaigning
year.
for 2 years now, at least.
Premature campaigns.
Yes.
So why I say it's early is because parties are yet to give us their blueprints, to publish them. Even though they are speaking about them, like Peter Kenneth was here last week talking about his blueprint.
And I think most of
in point form, but we want to interrogate those at the point when they take off. And that's going to have to be from January. I think we cannot pretend to hold them up to those promises right now. Right now is generalized campaigns, mobilizing people to get support for around personal level, at a personal level.
Gentlemen, just looking at these polls and those who are featured at perhaps 2%, 1% and below, who are the people who are talking about the issues a little bit more than the bigger politicians in terms of numbers. I want to just shift this slightly. There's a little bit of concern about the fact that pollsters create an expectation, which, if not met, could result in problems such as the post-election violence of 2007, 2008. In line with that, I want to also tackle the responsibility of the media and analysts such as yourselves in a country like this, where Ole Kiapi says, in the papers every single day, alliance, what do these alliances stand for? Let's talk about security. You didn't say that, but perhaps our big issues right now, security, health, education. I'm sorry, gentlemen, we are coming right back to that. Let me start with Peter on this.
It's true that the issues are being swept under the carpet and people are looking at the regional and ethnic alliances. That's a reality in this country. But I am of the school of thought that you cannot blame the pollsters. They don't actually create a perception. I think we need to start believing in that science of numbers, because these politicians, these very same politicians who are saying, condemning, dismissing the poll numbers, are the same ones going to consume those numbers and retweaking their campaign strategies based on what they are seeing. So I think we need to accept that and look at the deeper message that the numbers are telling us. And like I said, what these numbers are telling us is that Kenyans are still voting on ethnic lines. Kenyans are still looking at where is my man. And for example, another reason why probably Raila Odinga could be still ahead of his other candidates is, could it be that we actually don't know what the common voter wants to hear from a politician? Could it be that the vitandawili that we normally dismiss, that Raila has insisted on, are actually selling him more to the voters than the intellectual debates that we are trying to project out here?
Actually, I must buttress that point that Opondo is saying. I don't support politicians who turn to the media and say the media, to begin blaming the media for reporting about coalitions and alliances. Those things are happening. We have not told those politicians not to preach their campaign, their security, their health, their education, their foreign policy issues. They are preaching them. So how come when opinion pollsters go there to tap them, they don't get those people who are listening to them to actually reflect in the opinion polls? It simply means that people are excited about certain things in political times. It's not about hard nuts and bolts of economy, of development. It is hype, it is showbiz. That's what hooks numbers. So let them try that option, then force us to go that way if people begin to respond to that.
And Wananchi, the sad truth is, if you ask the newspapers which sell the most, you'll find that you, the viewer and the reader, are buying the one that has the coalition news. And that's a big part of shaping what media does, although that, doesn't mean we can ignore the responsibility to delve deeper into issues. And as such, I'm going to leave with a provocative question tonight. Tomorrow we have a discussion with Ford Foundation at University of Nairobi with students, a public lecture on fulfilling the promise of democracy. And an African president once told me, a former African president, that democracy is very dangerous in an environment where people are either highly ethnicized or highly uneducated. Gentlemen, do you agree or disagree?
Well, that is taking us into academy. Well, I would agree to a certain extent, but we should add poverty. I think it's difficult in an environment of poverty because then money and manipulation through money and means begins to affect the outcomes. But actually, democracy can be practiced at a certain level where basic needs are met. Until those are met, the electorate is still manipulable by those vices I'm talking about.
I will go back to the earlier point I made. As long as there is what is perceived to be horizontal inequality, that somebody, because he belongs to a certain tribe or a certain religion or a certain community, they think that they will not get access to the national resources because their person is not in State House, we are treading in a very dangerous ground. And that's our reality. So I think the biggest campaign issue that we should have now is demand that all these people campaigning should be able to tell Kenyans how you and me will have access, or rather will be equal, without, you know, it should not be a situation whereby people are saying we don't want to be outside the government.
None of us want
Everybody
to.
should be in the government.
Absolutely.
And I think the solution to that is a devolved government.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for that. And, you know, just to emphasize, I always say this, Baringo Central, and I think even Othaya, now you will find people living in abject poverty, and that it is not a pattern that if, you know, a president comes from your area or is of your tribe, that you are going to benefit. And indeed, the country should look to the president and the person who will give us all a piece of the cake, not just some. So this week also, right here on Citizen TV, we had editorial comment that was read by Hussein Mohammed, and you can look for that on www.citizennews.co.ke. Demand from your leaders the best vision and agenda they can give for the country. Don't just give them your vote, it's valuable. And thank you, gentlemen, that's it for today. Can I just pose the question? Does he remain the candidate to beat till the elections? Do you think we're going to see this poll retain the current pattern very quickly?
It's dicey. It depends on whom he's going to look up to bring on board his side.
It's the alliances.
It's the alliances.
He will remain the candidate to beat, but we will know in 3 weeks' time when probably parties sign the pre-election pacts. And that will depend on who he picks as the running mate. Very important.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's all about the running mate. What alliances are we going to see forming? Much more for you on Sunday Live in just a short while in the news studio. I'll see you there.